Hey guys, and welcome to this week's Sabbath School Short. My name is Andrew. I'm the host that has been with you for every quarter, and I don't know why the lower third with my name isn't coming in. It must be just stuck. There we go. Genuine host, genuine article, right here. But, well, we forgot the intro. Some other person forgot the little intro thing. But roll it. It's working out better than I thought. No more behind the camera, nor relegated to, just the interjections. I'm the genuine host now. No.
What's going on?
Nothing, just checking sound.
What do you think you're doing?
Nothing.
I promise you, I'm the real host. Let's talk about that. Hey guys, and welcome to this week's Sabbath School Short. This week we're looking at lesson number 5, which is titled Children of the Promise. We're going to be talking about promises this week. We're really excited. But first, click down in the description box at that link. Pull up this week's lesson. If you have a physical copy, go grab that. Follow along with us as we kind of skim over these main ideas presented in the lesson. So now that you have your lesson out and you're tracking along with us, let's look at the memory text for this week, which is found in Matthew chapter 28, verse 20. And it says this: "Lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world." A big promise that Jesus made. And for your guys' knowledge, because you're following along with us, we're going to be looking at Sunday's lesson, Monday's lesson, and Thursday's lesson, and kind of tackling the main themes that are presented there. So let's start by looking at Sunday's lesson, which is titled, Thy Shield. Think about that title, think about that imagery as you watch this video. You know, when I think of protection and thinking of the lesson title, Thy Shield, a lot of times we think about our physical protection or protecting someone else from physical harm, but now there's this whole nother layer in today's world that we need to protect, and that's the digital world, the digital age, especially because nowadays, basically our identity is out on the internet. Our bank statements, our credit cards, our social media, all this stuff is on this digital world. Basically, our identity is out there, and a hacker's main job is to try to steal that identity and use it for his own benefit.
Yes, but let me jump in. Oh, sorry. Lighting looks kind of like I'm being a hacker or something, but Andrew, you have a really good point, actually, but there's something we're forgetting. Think about the other side, the spiritual side. It's kind of interesting how, yes, technology exists, hacking, all of that, but what about our brains and the things that are going on with us? Whenever we think about idols and things in the past with the Bible, how we are like, how could these people be this bad and we're fine? But yeah, we've heard it many times how idols today are what we are kind of addicted to. But it also shows that how our brains are being used, we're kind of being manipulated. We're being pushed to have this feeling inside of us, this control, which is a way of Satan hacking our spiritual life. To sit down and read the Bible is so difficult, but to watch YouTube and get lost in that chain, the algorithm, whatever it is that keeps us hooked, that is a hacking of the mind. And maybe a lot of things that we're overlooking is specifically, it's exactly that, actually. It's what God wants to be, that shield to protect us from. And maybe we should think about that more. How are we being manipulated, hacked mentally with those things?
That's a really good point, Jefferson. And that's kind of what Sunday's lesson is all about, God being our shield and protecting us from the attacks of the enemy. And so jumping over now to Monday's lesson, which is titled The Messianic Promise, Part 1. Think about that title as you watch this video. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those really long videos that some people post where they set up all their little dominoes, right? And they knock them over and they're falling, and you don't really know exactly what's going on. But then at the very end, once they've all fallen over, you see this beautiful picture that the person was painting with dominoes, right? And when I think about dominoes and think about the messianic promise, especially in this lesson here, I think of all the things, all the promises that God made to Abraham, and God has made throughout the centuries, and how Jesus was the fulfillment of all of those. And all these promises were kind of like dominoes being knocked over, painting this beautiful picture of Jesus. So when he came, he fulfilled all of these promises, and all these dominoes painted this beautiful picture of Jesus. But thinking about today's world and today's day and age, that was back then. Jesus lived, fulfilled all the promises for us. But I think today that we are dominoes. You and I are a domino in the story that Jesus is trying to tell the world. And he's using us in miraculous ways to touch other people's lives and to bring the gospel message into people's lives. And in that sense, we're a little domino. And that without us, there may be some dominoes that wouldn't have been able to be knocked over to paint the beautiful picture of Jesus. And I imagine when he comes again and he takes us up into heaven, that we'll be able to see that whole picture and see how we, as a little domino, were able to play a huge, massive part in bringing people to heaven and fulfilling God's mission here on earth. So that kind of touches on Monday's lesson. There's a lot more in there, so go read that and see what other great things are in there. But let's jump over to Thursday's lesson, which is titled, Make Your Name Great. Make your name great. What does that mean? Well, let me see if I can help you out. What exactly was that? Well, if you didn't get it from the video, it's clay. And when I think about clay and this whole thing of making your name great and this promise that God made to Abraham and Abraham's role in this promise, just as clay's role, this image that's actually used throughout the Bible many times, is to simply be willing to be molded. And that's the role of clay. As it sits there, it's willing to allow the master potter to morph it into the identity that it needs to be. And in the same way, Abraham's role was just to be willing and just to be there and be malleable for God to mold him into the identity that he needed him to be.
That's a really good point, Andrew, but it's only the beginning. Because for Abraham, he had to act on the molding that God was doing. God called him out to a land that he did not know, a foreign land. And as Abraham stepped forward in faith, then God used that action and molded him into the identity that God wanted for Abraham. And I think this quote from Thursday's lesson really helps to highlight that. It says, by our words, our actions, even our attitudes, we can help bring glory to the Lord, who has done so much for us, or we can bring shame upon him and his name.
Andrew, that's a solid point, and I think that these two ideas need to be working harmoniously with one another, that we're willing and we're allowing God to form us into the identity that he wants for us, but at the same time, we're going and he's empowering us along the way. It's not that we're just sitting there, but we're actively doing what God calls us to do while he's forming us. And these two ideas really work harmoniously together. So that kind of wraps up this week's lesson. But there's so much more in there. Like I said, we glanced over the main themes, the main points that kind of came out through the lesson. So I encourage you, you have the lesson out right now, right? Go ahead and read the rest of it. If you've already read it, maybe read through it again. See what you missed last time. And think about these new visuals that we brought to your mind as you're reading through this lesson so you can glean more from it and learn more from it, because the lesson is the meat. What we're presenting here is the milk. The lesson is the meat of the thing, and there's so many good things in there. So dive into that and read it for yourself. But I hope that you liked this week's Sabbath School Short. If you give a thumbs up for this video, subscribe to Advent Blueprint for future videos, and stay tuned for next week's Sabbath School Short, and we'll see you then.